Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Hello, I'm Jessica McElveen, a child behaviour and family dynamics specialist. Today's a little different for me chatting to you, and the reason why. So, a lot of the time, parents come to me pretty overwhelmed by the choices that they have out there with practitioners and the options and the approaches and the modalities. And one of the things that I wanted to share about myself, I think it's really important to understand why practitioners do the work that they do. And for me, a lot of people would wait until after they have kids to do the work that I do, but here's why I couldn't wait that long. So I'm a product of various things, as we all are. I'm a product of my own childhood. And for those of you who don't know my story, or my journey from childhood to adulthood. So I had an alcoholic dad. I had a mum who was depressed quite a lot of my childhood. Sometimes where it was too overwhelming for mum to come out of the room with the world on her shoulders and what she was having to deal with. We lost our businesses and our home due to my dad's gambling addiction when I was young. And that really spiraled into some drug addiction and then into alcoholism. And for me, being the eldest, I coped by basically dissociating from my body, dissociating from feelings, emotions, because I needed to keep my shit together. I needed to be on all of the time. I needed to survey. I needed to survey my environment constantly. I needed to know if dad was okay, if mum was okay, how to make them okay. Is dad acting unpredictably today? Are he and mum going to argue today? Is that going to turn into something really nasty? Is my dad safe today? Is he wanting to commit suicide today? How do I save him today? How do I make sure my brother and my sister listen to my mum so they're not upsetting my mum every day? How do I be the second mum to my brother and sister because my mum is overwhelmed, and I also wanted to protect and make sure my brother and sister were okay. That was the most important role to me. So my journey was to dissociate from my body completely. And, it wasn't rare for me to have this one life at home and then turn up to school and live a completely different life. So I would use school as my escape. School was the environment where for many years I could be the happy Jess, the Jess without any problems. That was a space that I could just be me. I remember one time with my dad, I wanted him to understand the problem that was happening and the problem that he had. And I remember lining up bottles. There would have been about 10 to 15 vodka bottles, big ones. And I just lined them up in the room, hoping that it would have some sort of impact for him. And that was when I was a bit older. So I realized that my words weren't doing much for my dad. And, you start to want to understand why people are this way when you're in an environment like this, when you have a childhood like this. And I certainly wanted to know what was going on for my mum and my dad. How do I fix this? How do I change this? Now, I became a social worker. Classic case. I couldn't save my parents and create a home of happiness constantly for myself. Now, don't get me wrong, we had a lot of happy times in my home. But when you are living in fear of your dad's health, well-being, his life, whether or not he's going to commit suicide that day, not knowing if there's going to be big arguments, things thrown, is there going to be a car for us the next day? There's a lot of unpredictability, and no matter how you slice it, that's the most important thing for children, is to feel safe and secure. And obviously I know that now. So I forget where I was going with that train of thought, but essentially as I got older, I really needed to uncover a lot of things about myself. And now that I'm 35, I really understand that it has everything to do with my nervous system. Any worry, any fear, that's constant survival mode was all directed at my nervous system. As a young adult, I was classic busy person. If ever I felt something, I would make a plan with friends. Now, not even necessarily friends that I liked. I had a relationship that was full of anger and arguments, and I was forever projecting all of this out onto the world. And then a few years later, I would say not until my 30s, my 30s, did I understand that I needed to start processing these emotions. And when I opened that floodgate, it was scary. It was scary. It was time for little Jess and big Jess, to retrain my nervous system. I had to create safety within my own body. I had to, those moments where there's loud noises or loud yelling, or I don't have control over my environment, and it create anxiety and this need for control and these feelings of terror in my body. I needed to retrain that. And I still practice that, and it's still a conscious effort for me. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this is why I couldn't wait until after children to do the work that I do. I have a really great understanding what it's like to be a terrified child in this world. And I really have a great understanding of what it does to the nervous system, because I've been digging and digging and digging into my nervous system, my brain, my relationship with my parents, how it impacted me for many, many years now. And I work with parents now. I used to work with children one-on-one, and I realized that working with parents is really where it's at. That's where the power lies. And because I see a lot of the same patterns, where children just need to be heard and understood, and parents just need to do whatever they need to do to be okay. For myself as a young child, I would have given anything for my parents to be okay. That was my life's mission. That was my life's work. So it's not until our parents are okay that we can be okay. And I also understand how parents can help their kids with their nervous system, with all these big emotions coming out. I've had to go through that process as an adult. So that's why I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait until I had children to share this information, to share what I've learned, to share what I've observed with the thousands of families that I've now been able to work with. So yes, I could have waited until after I had children, but it's too important not to share this information. It's too important. We are seeing record percentages of children struggling. We are seeing record percentages of parents struggling. And I don't believe that it's necessary, based on what has worked for me and what I've been able to learn based on my childhood experiences, and how I've needed to heal my own nervous system, the emotions, and what I needed from my parents, but what I need now as an adult. I don't believe it's necessary. And so a lot of my framework is bringing things back to simplicity and what children's core needs are. We get lost in this world. We get lost. I can read a book. I read a lot of books on parenting for my work. I can read that book all the way through, and it's got some great ideas. And yet at the end, I can see how you would have no idea where to begin. We are inundated. And this is why it was too important. I couldn't wait until I had children to share this. Yes, I will have my own challenges when I have children. There's no doubt about that at all. It will be another growing opportunity for me. But until then, I get to share how I've been able to heal my inner child, you know, that little Jess that was scared every day to what she was going to come home to. That's the work that we need support from our parents with when we're young. And that's what's not happening today. There's ways that we can support children with these big emotions that don't lead to these big events or outcomes as we are young adults or adults. There are ways that we can do it. And I've had to learn this the hard way, but that's what makes it really important to share. So I just wanted to share that with you, because sometimes I get asked, how do you know all this stuff, Jess, when you don't have children? And it's from my own experiences, and then my addiction and in my absolute commitment to understanding how can we make this better? How can I help all the little Jesses in this world? And how can I help all of Jess's parents in this world who just feel overwhelmed with things, but still want the greatest life for their children? And my parents did. They had their own world of stuff going on. So that's why I couldn't wait until after I had children. If there is any questions that you have, or you're curious about anything that we do here at the Happy Home Network or that I do with my clients, if you are interested, then all you need to do is reach out to me. But that's what needed to be shared for today. Thanks for listening.